Shivaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye. Nashtaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Aksharanmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Pakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasantubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Kam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate kirim. Vipatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for joining. Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 12th chapter, text 13 onwards. So, yeah, the main message of this chapter is, in a way, Bhagavad Gita 2:14, Matra Sparshastu Kaunteya Sitoshana Sukha Dukkadaha Agam Paino Anityas Tamsati Dikshashva Bharata, or Sthita Prajna kind of a message. Remaining equanimous in joy and sorrow, victory and defeat. In all circumstances, performing one's duty, performing one's actions, not worrying about the fruits. Krishna is the only one that is victorious all the time. Last time we heard that shloka. Others depends. Sometimes they are victorious, sometimes they are defeated. But perform one's actions and duties irrespective of the outcome of them. So that's the main message here in this chapter. So in Vrtrasura and Indra, they are conversing. So yeah, the battle is mostly now restricted to a one-on-one battle between Vrtrasura and Indra. And Indra has already cut off Vrtrasura's arms, one or both of them. But Vrtrasura still is not morose, is not giving up. And again, he's not giving up to win or not lose. He's not worried about that. He's just doing his duty as a matter of fact. And he's telling Indra the same. So today is a beautiful verse, verse 13 onwards. But I will read, as I usually do, some verses prior to 13. All living beings in all the planets, text 8, all living beings in all the planets of this universe, including the presiding deities of all the planets, are fully under the control of the Lord. They work like birds caught in a net, cannot move independently. So we discussed the living entities have limited independence. The Supreme Lord, he is unlimitedly independent, Swarat. And the living entities, depending on the use of their free will, they have independence. Like Narada Muni, for example, he has such free will, full surrender, full freedom. He can go anywhere as he pleases. He doesn't need a passport or a visa, etc. He can go anywhere. But we can see how, even using that passport and visa example, there are restrictions. Yeah, but the Supreme Lord is not restricted. The leash may be longer or shorter, but we are all independent. Our sensory prowess, mental power, bodily strength, living force, immortality, and mortality are all subject to the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not knowing this, foolish people think the dull material body to be the cause of their activities. O King Indra, as a wooden doll that looks like a woman, or as a stuffed animal made of grass and leaves, cannot move or dance independently, but depends fully on the person who handles it. All of us dance according to the desire of the Supreme Controller, Personality of Godhead. No one is independent. So here we explain all of us dance according to the desire of the Supreme Controller means, well, not that the Lord wants us to do all these things. That's not what it means. It means we are controlled. We are controlled by either the internal energy or the external energy. There is no third thing. Or there's the Tatastha Shakti, marginal potency, the living entity, who can take shelter of either of these two. So all of us dance according to the desire of the Supreme Controller means the Lord has created these energies and will be dancing in either of them. A foolish, senseless person cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although always dependent, he falsely thinks himself the Supreme. Okay, so now, and then just as the 613, today's verse, Ayu Shri Kritir Aishwaryam, Ayuhu Shri Kirtir Aishwaryam, Ashisha Purushasya Yaha, Bhavanti Evahi Tatkale, Tatkale, Yatha Anichor Viparyaya. So Krishna is, Vrtrasura is saying, just as a person not inclined to die must nonetheless give up his longevity, Ayu, Shrihi, opulence, fame, and everything else at the time of death. So, at the appointed time of victory, one can gain all these when the Supreme Lord awards them by his mercy. So, this is important. So, not being restless and agitated while executing anything, even acts of devotional service. When will this happen? When will that happen? It'll happen when it'll happen. Yeah. Just as a person not inclined to die must nonetheless give up his longevity, opulence, fame, and everything else at the time of death. So, at the appointed time of victory, one can gain all these when the Supreme Lord awards them by his mercy. It's a beautiful purport. It is not good to be falsely puffed up, saying that by one's own effort one has become opulent, learned, beautiful, and so on. All such good fortune is achieved through the mercy of the Lord. From another point of view, no one wants to die, and no one wants to be poor or ugly. Therefore, why does the living entity against his will receive such unwanted troubles? It is due to the mercy or chastisement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that one gains or loses everything material. No one is independent. Everyone is dependent on the mercy or chastisement of the Supreme Lord. There is a common saying in Bengal that the Lord has 10 hands. This means that he has control everywhere, in the 8 directions, and up and down. If he wants to take everything away from us with his 10 hands, we cannot protect anything with our 2 hands. Similarly, if he wants to bestow benedictions upon us with his 10 hands, Namo Mahavadanyaya, we cannot factually receive them with our 2 hands, all with our 2 hands. In other words, benedictions exceed our ambitions. This is true. This is about the Supreme Lord, as we were hearing from His Holiness Radha Govinda Maharaj. There may be some delay when it comes to the Lord, but when the Lord favors, then He doesn't get upset again, like the demigod sometimes. And when the Lord favors, He usually gives us more than what we even aspire for, whether it's Bali Maharaj or Dhruva Loka, Dhruva Maharaj. He's not stingy, the Lord. Yeah, even Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We'll talk about him a little bit. Yeah. If he wants to bestow benedictions upon us with his 10 hands, we cannot factually receive them all with our 2 hands. In other words, the benedictions exceed our ambitions. The conclusion is that even though we do not wish to be separated from our possessions, sometimes the Lord forcibly takes them from us, and sometimes He showers such benedictions upon us that we are unable to receive them all. Therefore, either in opulence or in distress, we are not independent. Sukhe dukhe bhule na sada hari bole da. Therefore, either in opulence or in distress, we are not independent. Everything is dependent on the sweet will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's text 13. Tasmad akirti yashashor jaya apajayayor api samah syad sukha dukkhabhyam mrityu jivitayos tatha. Same thing. Since everything is dependent on the supreme will of the supreme personality of Godhead, one should be equipoised in fame and defamation, akirti yasha, jaya and apajaya, victory and defeat, life and death. In their effects represented as happiness and distress, one should maintain oneself in equilibrium without anxiety. So what is nice sentence. In their effects, what Prabhupada is saying is, fame, we are happy. Defamation, we are not happy. Victory, we are happy. Defeat, we are not happy. Life, we are happy. Death, we are unhappy. So all these things, they are actually they're representing happiness and distress, different ways. In their effects represented as happiness and distress, one should maintain oneself in equilibrium without anxiety. It's text 13. Sattvam rajas tamas iti prakriter na atmana gunaha tatra sakshinam atmanam yo veda sana badhyate. One who knows that the three qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are not qualities of the soul, but qualities of material nature, and who knows that the pure soul is simply an observer of the actions and reactions of these qualities, should be understood to be a liberated person. He is not bound by these qualities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, as the Lord explains in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sochati na kankshati sammaha sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param. One who is transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything, is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. So again, as we understand, there are stages of bhakti. So on one level, we have attained pure devotional service even now, of course, in a seed-like state. But this is another level here. Then in that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. When one attains self-realization, the Brahmabhuta stage, one knows that whatever happens during his life is due to the contamination of the modes of material nature. The living being, the pure soul, has nothing to do with these modes. In the midst of the hurricane of the material world, everything changes very quickly. But if one remains silent and simply observe the actions and reactions of the hurricane, is understood to be liberated. The real qualification of the liberated soul is that he remains Krishna conscious, undisturbed by the actions and reactions of the material energy. Such a liberated person is always jubilant. He never laments or aspires for anything, since everything is supplied to the Supreme Lord. A living entity, being fully dependent on him, should not protest or accept anything in terms of his personal sense gratification. Rather, he should receive everything as the mercy of the Lord and remain steady in all circumstances. So, Sthita Prajna. So here, Vrtrasura, in a way, we can see Vrtrasura through these verses. Vrtrasura is actually telling Indra, but we can see Vrtrasura through these verses. And Indra, and we are not on this platform. Just read one more verse. Oh, my enemy, just look at me. I have already been defeated, for my weapon and arm have been cut to pieces. You already overwhelmed me, but nonetheless, with a desire to kill you, I am trying my best to fight. I am not at all morose, even under such adverse conditions. Therefore, you should give up your moroseness and continue fighting. Srila Prabhupada. Vrtrasura was so great and powerful that in effect he was acting as a spiritual master of Indra. He had killed Vishwarupa, but here again, Vrtrasura is back as a spiritual master. Vrtrasura was so great and powerful that in effect he was acting as a spiritual master of Indra. Although Vrtrasura was on the verge of defeat, he was not at all affected. He knew that he was going to be defeated by Indra, and he voluntarily accepted that. But since he was supposed to be Indra's enemy, he tried his best to kill Indra. Thus he performed his duty. One should perform his duty under all circumstances, even though one may know what the result will be. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. 13, 14, 15, 16, I think. Just as a person not inclined to die must nonetheless give up his longevity, opulence, fame, and everything else at the time of death, so at the appointed time of victory, one can gain all these when the Supreme Lord awards him by his mercy. So, as the scriptures mention, just as distress comes of its own accord, nobody wants distress, nobody wants to die, but it comes. So, similarly, the scriptures mention, similarly, the victory or the happiness also comes of its own accord. Of its own accord means we have done something in the past, and then based on that, the Lord is dispensing. Is dispensing. Man proposes, God disposes. So it's not that everything we propose, the Supreme Lord is obliged to dispose that. There is something like our deserve also. What do we deserve? And the Lord does that. Like yesterday in the Sunday feast. So yeah, one person was asking about the law of karma and things like that. That when somebody is born, if a child is born as a blind person or a lame person or like that, what is his fault? He's innocent, right? Yes, it was difficult for me to say. Well, to us, he appears innocent in this lifetime. When he's just born, so he appears innocent or ignorant. Innocent. I said, but nothing happens by chance. Something must be there in the prior lives. It's prarabdha. We're not heartless, but we have to look at things from the eyes of scriptures. Otherwise, how will we make meaning of anything? Then it seems like it's a chaotic. Somebody has vision, somebody doesn't have vision. Somebody has their legs which are functioning, and somebody doesn't. So how does one explain all these things? And he kept saying, yeah, okay, scriptures, but what is your personal opinion or experience? I said, my personal opinion or experience is irrelevant. I mean, the laws of nature, Krishna has arranged that shall come to pass. So here Srila Prabhupada is writing, it is not good to be falsely puffed up, saying that by one's own effort one has become opulent, learned, beautiful, etc. Janma, Aishwarya, Shrutashri, Bhir. So these are all awarded by the Lord. And it's a very complicated formula. You cannot put it in a mathematical equation. Mhm. But the laws of karma are there. Everything, each and everything is being noted by the Lord. He has his servants that note all that, and accordingly, perfectly, the material nature, then it dispenses. So Prabhupada is saying, so we should not be falsely puffed up about our Janma Aishwarya Shutashri. Yes, the Lord is merciful. We may have done something in our last lives. So we have that. But we only have that because the Lord decides to give it to us. As we understand, the Lord is still independent. So he gives even when his sanction has to be there. From another point of view, no one wants to die and no one wants to be poor or ugly. Yeah. But it happens anyway. So then here, of course, Prabhupada is making a distinction, looking at it from a normal point of view, as a reward and chastisement. Being beautiful, learned, opulent is a reward. Being poor, ugly, etc. is a chastisement. It is due to the mercy or chastisement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that one gains or loses everything material. No one is independent. Everyone is dependent on the mercy or chastisement of the Supreme Lord. So again, the main point here is everyone is dependent on the Lord. And then the Lord's nature is being described here. The Lord has 10 hands. So if he wants to give with 10 hands, how much can we receive from 2 hands? And similarly, if he wants to take away with 10 hands, how much can we hold on to with 2 hands? Not much. Yeah, anyway, we can focus. We can focus on this. I think it's easy for us to see this part that if the Lord wants to give us with 10 hands, how much can we receive with 2 hands? Especially with respect to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the process of bhakti. Yeah. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come. To give the topmost love of Godhead, that too in the mood of the Vrajavasis, residents of Vrindavan. And Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he put a condition, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Moksha Ishyami Ma Suchaha. He put a condition, abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto me. You do this first, then I'll do this. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he didn't even put any condition. He didn't see who is qualified, who is not qualified. The only price of purchasing the holy name is faith. If somebody puts faith and faithfully receives it, it's his, the holy name is his. And then beginning with the holy name, then the Lord, he has given us so many things now. The Srimad Bhagavatam, the Arsha Vigraha form of the Lord, the deities, the devotees, then the holy dhams, earth, water, fire, air. So many things the Lord has given us. And we are not able to fully receive actually. Yeah, because our receptacles have holes in them, so we can't even receive them fully. That's one. And then the Lord is there as the Paramatma in our heart, constantly. So, for example, Radha Maharaj was speaking this morning. If I go to the office, when I go to the office, my wife cannot accompany me. Or if I'm at the office, I'm not at home. But if I'm at my home, then I'm not at my office. But the Lord, he accompanies us everywhere, wherever we are. And he's waiting. He's waiting forever, patiently, lovingly. When we will turn to him. And whenever we turn to him, he is ready to reciprocate. He's not, because our looking up to him is intermittent. Sometimes we look to him, sometimes we turn away. Sometimes we look to him, sometimes we turn away. But the Lord is very loving, merciful. He doesn't mind. He's not calculating, oh, yesterday he turned away again. Today I'll not look at him, even though he looks at me like that. The Lord is not like that. Hmm. So the Lord, when he gives with 10 hands, and we can't receive with our 2 hands, limited 2 hands. Therefore, either in opulence or in distress, we are not independent, and everything is dependent on the seat will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So similarly, if we want to take away something, who can stop him? One of his names is Hari. Hari means one who takes away. The Lord, as we were discussing, he is merciful. He usually will take away things that are detrimental for us anyway. Anartha, something that is unwanted anyway or unneeded. The Lord takes it away. Mm. One time, one wealthy businessman, he approached Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, and he wanted to give him a donation. He didn't give it to him, but he gave it to his servant Bihari. He gave him a rupee or something like that. A wealthy businessman, he gave him a rupee. And then and Bihari and Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, he was very old. He was carried in a basket by Bihari. They kept walking with that rupee. After some time, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj said, wait a minute, turn back, turn back. I want to give that businessman his rupee back. And then they find him, and then Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj says, here you go, take back your rupee. Anyway, he chastised him. He said, I don't know how you carry so many rupees. Even just this one rupee that you gave us, it was difficult for us to carry. You keep it, he said. So Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj actually wanted to relieve him of the burden that he was carrying. And he told him very strongly, he said, when a man of means, he gives a rupee, it's an act of piety. It's not an act from the heart. So keep your rupee. Thank you very much. But no, thank you. I don't want your rupee. So Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, I mean, it's not like he's thinking like that, okay, oh, I can't accept a 5 rupee donation. But he was instructing the businessman, when you have a million and you give 5 rupees, what's the point of that? Just keep it. Yeah. Offer your heart to the Lord. So the Lord or his devotees, sometimes they do that. They try to encourage us to take away things that are not useful for us anyway and offer them in the service of the Lord. Since everything is dependent on the supreme will of the personality of Godhead, one should be equally poised in fame and deformation, victory and defeat, life and death, and their effects represented as happiness and distress. One should maintain oneself in equilibrium without anxiety. So these kind of verses are there in Bhagavad Gita throughout the Bhagavad Gita. Second chapter is there, right? Matras Parshastu Kaunteya. Then Sthita Prajna section, it is there. Then further chapters, it is there. Then the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is saying, such a devotee is very dear to me, such a devotee is very dear to me, like that. So there, Krishna, he gradually increases. He says in one of the verses, the person who sees stone and pebble as the same. So he's talking about gross things, stone and pebble. And then he's talking about the subtle things, fame and defamation, victory and defeat, life and death. Such a devotee is very dear to me. And then the words that Prabhupada quoted in the next purport or so, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Na Sochati Na Kankshati. Again, similar verse. Sammoham Sarvabhut Kapilsam Brahma Prasannatma Na Sochati Na Kankshati Samma Sarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param. So Krishna glorifies these qualities again and again in Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavatam. And of course, these qualities, they follow the pure devotee. Swarupa Lakshana and Tatastha Lakshana. Yeah, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes about these things in bhajans. Kiladar is quoting something. Vipade sampade tahat samabhave dine dine vriddhi hoy pamera namera prabhave. Yeah, this is Prabhu Tava Pada Yuga bhajan. Very wonderful bhajan. So anyway, this is the theme here. Vrtrasura is instructing Indra, as Prabhupada is saying, as a spiritual master, taking the role of a spiritual master is instructing Indra. It's very nice. And then Indra also, he also realizes actually, later on, we see this actually. 2, 3 verses ahead. We'll read this tomorrow. Sukadeva Goswami said, hearing the straightforward instructive words of Vrtrasura, King Indra praised him and again took the thunderbolt in his hand without bewilderment or duplicity. He then smiled and spoke to Vrtrasura as follows. He calls him a pure devotee. Indra said, O great demon, I see by your discrimination and endurance in devotional service, despite your dangerous position, that you are a perfect devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Super Soul and friend of everyone. So Indra is seeing Vrtrasura for who he is, finally. Okay, so we'll pause 7:41, see if there's any sharing, discussion, comments or questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The pastime of Jagadananda's Babaji Maharaj, which you were narrating, in a way, I'm trying to see this in light of the other side of the picture, where even if you turn a screw, in the temple, it has value. Now, of course, Jagadananda's Babaji Maharaj was also an avaduta in terms of whatever he had this way of saying things for the benefit of the other. But I'm just trying to put it in light of both, and if you can share a little bit from that angle.
You're, I think, driving and speaking, so not clear. What is the other aspect of accepting whatever one is able to give?
Sorry, yeah.
Accepting
even
whatever one is able to offer, like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just this morning I was hearing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy is Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. And there are verses in the Bhagavatam, in the scriptures. Pranair Arther Diya Vacha Shreya Acharanam Shraddha Etava Janma Safalyam Dehinam Ihatehishu. Where, as you're saying, this allowance is there gradually. Pranair Arther Diya Vacha. One can offer one's life. Artha, Diya or Vacha. Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prayachati. So it's there. Yeah, and as you're saying, and the sadhu, what he does, he doesn't do it like universally, you follow. Meaning, Jagannatha Swami Maharaj must have seen something in this person, and he did what he did. It's not like every person that offers something small or meager, he did that. Krishna also be here. He has both sides. He's very, very, of course, accepting, and he's ready to accept whatever we offer. But we also hear he has another side from the acharyas, that Krishna is not seeing what you're offering to him, but he's seeing what you're holding back in the back pocket. So I guess both are there. Essentially, Krishna wants our heart. He wants surrender. He wants anyor, more. Okay, that's nice, more. And for us, the more seems, things, but from Krishna's perspective, it's not the things actually. He wants more of our heart, more of our surrender. Yeah. Anyway, let's tell you a story, Prabhupada's story. But it was not like this Jagannatha thing. But there was one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, uh, I think book distribution marathon or whatever. So they worked day and night very hard. So the devotees were serving, and they collected a significant donation during those times, 70s, $100,000 or something like that. Significant money, $100,000. And right now it's like in yearly salary almost. So he had collected that. And then he was feeling, of course, very happy, and he wanted to he came to offer to Srila Prabhupada. Or he offered this magic number, $108,000 or something like that. Something like that. He offered $108,000 maybe. And he thought, wow, it's a very auspicious number. And then Prabhupada, he accepted that, and he said, fantastic, thank you very much. But if it is more than 108, it's even better, he said. For Krishna's service, we could use more also. So like that. So anyway, so Prabhupada was just encouraging that person. And that, Krishna's service, if those resources are in the right hands, any amount can be used. And of course, one gives what one can. That also is accepted. Yeah. Like Srila Prabhupada disciples, some of them, they took sannyas. Prabhupada gave them sannyas. And some of them somehow were not able to maintain sannyas. So Prabhupada was not disappointed. On one level, he may have been, but he said that's okay, no problem. Just practice Krishna consciousness. So be a grihastha and preach. Okay. Anything else? Anyone on this topic?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept noble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
On this front of that. There's one point which in text 15, Prabhupada's, you were mentioning. Prabhupada writes in the purport that three modes are not the qualities of the soul, but qualities of the material nature. And pure soul is simply an observer.
Yeah.
So that was a very nice, very nice. Because so we are actually so helpless. We are in a very helpless condition because everything is controlled by the modes of nature. And as Prabhupada writes, the actions and reactions of the modes is what we are experiencing. And therefore, the prudent thing is to just surrender to the Lord. Just like, like a dog is under the protection of the master, or typically a servant in the earlier, generally family, when there was agricultural life and life in villages and all that, the servants, there are the people who used to work for the families were generations and generations, they just working. The servants had nothing to worry. They were always peaceful. It was the master who was worried to maintain his property and pay them and all that. But the servants' families were all very happy, and they were always contented and they felt very protected. So I think that is the best position for a living entity, that to be a servant of Krishna and be an observer of what is happening and just accept them. Instead of trying to manipulate the material nature, accept that actually material nature controls us, and the Lord is our protector. Only He can really. So that feeling of surrender or dependence, that is the best thing for us, really. That's what.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we didn't cover this purport today. I read it though. We will read it. We'll cover it tomorrow. Yeah, and so the example that Srila Prabhupada gives, right, with the Bhagavad Gita, the soul, as you're saying, the soul being the passenger in the chariot, right? Yeah, so in that sense, the soul is helpless. So there is the charioteer, there are the horses, there are the reins, and the passenger, is the soul, who's at the mercy, in one sense, of in the charioteer and the horses and the reins. Yeah, thank you. Anything else? Well, the nature, coming back to Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, yeah, the nature of Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, he was very compassionate, very loving, but he had less of a tolerance for duplicity and all those things. In Vrindavan, also where he was residing at some point, he had received, for example, what propelled him back from Vrindavan to Mayapur, Navadvip. Yeah, at one point he had accepted some bread or some chapati or something from some street sweepers, Jagannatha Swami Maharaj. Yeah. And so there was a big hubbub in Vrindavan. Oh, how can you accept him from a street sweeper like that? He said, what's problem? I mean, we say that the most glorious thing of Vrindavan is Chintamani, the dust of Vrindavan. And this person, throughout the day, is actually serving the dust of Vrindavan. He's rolling literally in the dust of Vrindavan. For generations, his ancestors have been doing that. He has been doing it. What's the issue? So he didn't like the mole in Vrindavan. He left. So this businessman also, I think, from the same place. Now, Jagannath Das Babaji was coming. Another time he asked his servant Bihari, hey, how much money do we have in the hundi? And he gave some number. He said, buy rasgullas, offer them to my deity, and then feed all the dogs and cows in Nadia, Navadvip. And Bihari, out of innocence, he said, can I also offer some to the Babajis? He said, no, no. So he said, these Babajis are just Babajis in name only. They're not Babajis. So no. On the other hand, these dogs and cows, they are Dhambasis. He shared his plate. He would have prasadam with the puppies. Yeah. That's why he was definitely an Avadhuta. Anything else? And